Now read this.
Hello, and welcome back to Now Read This. The Chronicles of Prydain, Book 4, Taran Wanderer, Chapter 10, The Broken Spell. The polished splinter was unyielding as iron. Teeth clenched, and muscles trembled with his effort. Taran felt he struggled against the wizard himself. Leanne had dropped weakly to her haunches. Morda sprang free of the unconscious cat, and set upon Taran once more, snatching at the fragment. The wizard's fingers locked on the middle of the shard, and Taran clung with all his strength to the ends of it. He felt the splinter bend as Morda strove to wrest it from his grip. Suddenly, the bone snapped in two. A sound sharper than a thunderclap split Taran's ears. With a horrible scream that stabbed through the chamber, Morda toppled backward, stiffened, clawed the air, then fell to the ground like a pile of broken twigs. That same instant, the mouse vanished. Gurgi stood at Taran's side. "Kind master saves us," he yelled, flinging his arms about Taran. Yes, Gurgi is Gurgi again. No more a mouse with shriekings and squeakings." In Taran's hand, the sundered bone had turned to grey dust, which he cast aside. Too exhausted and bewildered to speak, he could only pat Gurgi fondly and gratefully. Leanne, her deep chest heaving, climbed to her feet near Morda's broken, lifeless form. Her tawny fur still bristled furiously, and her long tail looked twice its thickness. As Gurgi hastened to unloose Kor, who jabbered at the top of his voice and beat his wings excitedly against the cage, Leanne's golden eyes darted about the chamber, and from her throat rose an anxious, questioning trill. "Great Bellin!" came Fluda's voice. "I'm trapped as badly as before." Leanne loping ahead of him, Taran ran to a corner of the chamber. The basket, in which Morda imprisoned the hare, now held the bard, squeezed into it along with his harp, and stuck fast, with his long shanks dangling over one side and his arms flapping helplessly over the other. With some difficulty, Taran and Gurgi set about freeing the bard, who hardly left off stammering incoherently all the while. Fluda's face was ashen from fright. He blinked and shook his ragged yellow head, and heaved huge sighs of relief. "What humiliation!" he burst out. "A flam, turned into a rabbit! I felt I'd been stuffed into a wool sack. Great Bellin, my nose still twitches. Never again! I told you no good comes from meddling. Though in this case, Taran, old friend, it's lucky you had that bone. Easy there, that wicker's jabbing me. A rabbit indeed, if I could only have got my hands, on that foul Morda." At last, out of the basket, Fluda threw his arms around Leanne's powerful neck. "And you, old gal, if you hadn't come looking for us." He shuddered and clapped hands to his ears. "Yes, well, not think of that." In the doorway stood a short, stocky, stoutly booted figure dressed in russet leather, on his head a round, close-fitting leather cap. Thumbs hooked into his belt, he turned bright crimson eyes on each of the companions. Instead of his customary scowl, a grin stretched across his broad face. "Dolly!" Taran cried, first catching sight of the dwarf. "It's you again!" "Again!" snapped Dolly, trying to make his voice as gruff as he could. "It always was!" He strode into the chamber. For a moment he looked down at Morda and nodded curtly. "So that's the way of it," he said to Taran. "I thought as much. One moment I was a frog, wrapped in a sopping wet cloak, sure all of you had been slain, and the next, as you see me." "That cat of yours grew restless after a time," Dolly went on, turning to Fluda. "She picked me up, cloak and all, and went off on your trail." "She won't let me out of her sight," replied Fluda. "For which," he added, fondly rubbing Leanne's ears, "we've all to thank her." "But how did she get through the thorns?" Taran asked. "Morda's traps?" "Through," answered Dolly. "She didn't go through. She went over." He shook his head. "In one bound, with me in her mouth. I've never seen a creature jump so high. On the other hand, I've never seen a creature like this. But what of the rest of you? What of Morda?" "If you don't mind," Fluda interrupted before Taran could finish telling the dwarf of their ordeal, "I suggest leaving here immediately. A flam is steadfast, but there's something about enchantments, even broken ones, that tends to, disturb me." "Wait!" cried Taran. "The jewel! Where is it?" As Dolly watched, puzzled, the companions hastily set about searching every corner of the chamber, to no avail. Taran's concern mounted, for he was reluctant to leave the gem unfound. However, when almost ready to admit the jewel was hopelessly lost, he heard a raucous laugh above his head. Caw, perched on an oaken rafter, rocked back and forth, chuckling and squawking, delighted with himself. The jewel glittered in his beak. "Hi, hi!" shouted Fluda, alarmed. "Give it up! Great Balin, you'll have us all with paws and tails again." After much coaxing by Taran and indignant retorts by the bard, Caw flapped to Taran's shoulder and dropped the gem in his hand. "Now it belongs to wise and kindly master," Gurgi exclaimed. "Gurgi fears stone of winkings and blinkings, but not when kindly master holds it." Dolly peered at the gem as Taran held it up. "So that's how Morda meant to enslave us. I should have guessed. This comes from the fair folk realm," he added. "We always honoured the house of Lear and gave the stone to Princess Regat as our wedding gift. She must have handed it down to her daughter, and when anger had vanished, the jewel vanished with her." "And now it comes to my hands," Taran said. He cupped the gem in his palm, watching the play of light in the depths of the crystal. "Morda has turned a thing of usefulness and beauty to evil ends. Whether it may ever serve its true purpose again, I do not know. To speak truth, it draws me and frightens me too. Its power is vast, too vast, perhaps, for any man to hold. Even if I could learn its secrets, I would not choose to do so." He smiled at Gurgi. "Do you call me wise? At least I'm wise enough to know I'll never have wisdom enough to use it. Still, it may serve one purpose," Taran went on. "With this to bargain, Audu will surely tell me who I am. Yes!" he cried. "This is a treasure she won't refuse." He stopped abruptly and paused a long moment. In his grasp lay means to gain the knowledge he craved, but his heart sank. Though he had won the gem fairly, never could he claim to be its rightful owner. It was his to bargain with, no more than it had been Morda's. If Audu accepted it, and if he should learn he was of noble birth, was a royal robe enough to hide a dishonourable deed? He looked at Dolly. "The gem is mine," Taran said, "but only mine to give, not mine to keep." Slowly he pressed the jewel into Dolly's hands. "Take this. It belonged once to the fair folk. It belongs to them once more." The dwarf's usual scowl softened. "You've done us a service," he answered. "Very likely the greatest service any of you mortals have ever done for the fair folk. Without your help, Morda could have destroyed us all. Yes, the gem must return to our realm. It's too dangerous in other hands. You chose well. King Idelig will ever remember you for this. You have his thanks and mine." Dolly nodded with satisfaction and tucked the stone carefully into his jacket. "It's made the long journey. At last it comes back to us." "Yes, yes," shouted Gurgi. "Take it for keepings. If kindly master will not have it, then Gurgi wants to see no more of wicked stone. Away with it, away! Do not let it turn faithful Gurgi into a mouse again." Taran, with a fond laugh, put a hand on Gurgi's shoulder. "Morda couldn't have changed what you truly are, any more than he could have changed Dolly. Mouse though you might have seemed, you still had the heart of a lion. But what of me?" he murmured thoughtfully. "As a caged eagle, as a blind worm, could I have indeed stayed myself? Would I still have been Taran, when I scarcely know who Taran is?" The sun had begun to climb, promising a day blue and fresh when the companions left the wizard's fastness. The wall of thorns had fallen, shattered like the evil power that raised it, and the companions breached it without difficulty. They untethered Melanlas and Gurgi's pony, but it was not until they had gone a considerable distance that Fluda agreed to halt and rest. Even then the bard appeared uncomfortable, and while Gurgi opened the wallet of food, Fluda sat distractedly on a hummock, meditatively fingering his ears, as though to make certain they were indeed his own. "Rabbits," the bard murmured. "I'll never chase another." Taran sat apart with Dolly, for there was much he had to tell, and much he wanted to ask. Though Dolly had regained his long frown and short patience, the occasional flicker of a grin betrayed his delight at seeing the companions again. Yet learning of Taran's quest, Dolly scowled more deeply than usual. "The Free Comets," said the dwarf. "We're on the best of terms with the Comet folk. They respect us, and we respect them. You'll not find many in Prydain to match their stout hearts and goodwill, and no man lords it over his fellows because he had the luck to be born in a king's castle instead of a farmer's hut. What matters in the Free Comets is the skill in a man's hands, not the blood in his veins. But I can tell you no more than that, for we have few dealings with them. Oh, we keep a waypost open here and there, just in case they might need our help, but it seldom happens. The Comet folk would rather count on themselves, and they do quite well at it. So we're more than pleased, for our own sake, as well as theirs, for we have burden enough keeping an eye on the rest of Prydain. As for the mirror you speak of," Dolly continued, "never heard of it. There's a lake of Lunette in the Logodan Mountains. More than that, I can't tell you. But what have you there?" the dwarf suddenly asked, noticing Taran's battle horn for the first time. "Where did you get that?" "Ilonwy gave it to me when I left Mona," Taran replied. "It was her pledge that we—" He smiled sadly. "How long ago it seems." He unslung the horn from his shoulder and handed it to Dolly. "That's fair folk craftsmanship," said the dwarf. "Can't mistake it." To Taran's surprise, Dolly squinted into one end, then the other, and raised the horn into the sunlight, as though trying to peer through the mouthpiece. As Taran watched, puzzled, Dolly rapped the horn sharply with his knuckles and thumped it against his knee. "Empty," the dwarf grumbled. "All used up. No, hold on a moment." He pressed the bell of the horn against his ear and listened intently. "There's one left, no more than that." "One what?" cried Taran, more than ever perplexed at Dolly's words. "One call. What did you think?" snapped Dolly. Fluda and Gurgi had come closer, drawn by Dolly's odd behaviour, and the dwarf turned to them. "This was crafted long ago, when men and fair folk lived in closer friendship, and each was glad to help the other. The horn holds a summons to us." "I don't understand," began Taran. "If you'd listened to me, you would," retorted Dolly, holding back the battle horn. "And I mean listen. Hard." He pursed his lips and whistled 3 long notes of a pitch and sequence strange to Taran. "Hear that? Sound those notes on the horn, just so, mind you, and no other way. They'll bring you the nearest fair folk who will do whatever they can if you need help. Now do you remember the tune?" Dolly whistled the notes again. Taran nodded and unthinkingly raised the horn to his lips. "Not now, you clot!" shouted Dolly. "Keep it in your head. I told you there was only one summons. Save it. Don't waste it. Some day your life may hang on that call." Taran stared in wonder at the horn. Ilonwy herself knew nothing of this. "You've done me a priceless favour, Dolly." "Favour?" snorted the dwarf. "No favour at all. The horn serves whoever happens to have it. In this case, you. I've done nothing but show you how to gain a little more use from something already yours. Favour? It's only a common courtesy. But guard it well. Squander it like a fool at the first whiff of danger, and you'll regret it when you really are in trouble." "Ahem," Fluda whispered to Taran. "My own counsel to you is, trust your wits, your sword, or your legs. Enchantment is enchantment, and if you've been through what I've been through, you'd want no part of it." He frowned uneasily at the battle horn and turned away. "I'll never be the same, that's sure," he muttered nervously, patting his ears. "Great Bellion, they still feel twice as long as before." Hey, you want to buy something? You can check the description for my books and audiobooks. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.